welcome everyone to the Primary Science Podcast. So far, throughout seasons 1 and 2, we've unpacked the hows of teaching and leading science, but today we're turning to that missing piece, the why. Like, why bother with primary science at all? Why should it stand shoulder to shoulder with English and maths?
So, I'm Jo Montgomery, also known as Dr Jo Science, and I'm a science specialist. I'm teaching children, supporting teachers, developing scientists, and inspiring minds. I wear a few hats. I teach Key Stage 2 science. I'm a primary science quality mark hub leader and regional lead in the east of England. I'm a consultant at SERI at the University of Manchester and an advisor for the Great Science Share for schools. I'm an Explorify champion, a science capital accredited trainer. I'm a consultant on BBC TV programmes for children about science, and I've worked on the Royal Institution Christmas lectures as well. I've got a background before teaching in scientific research. I'm a neuroscientist, and I've spent a chunk of my career actually at the interface between science and education as well, training scientists and in public engagement and outreach. I combine lots of these things in my portfolio career, and I teach preschool to postdoctoral.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, so it's fair to say that you know what you're talking about and you really do have a passion for science.
I absolutely love science. Yeah, definitely passionate about science and sharing that with others.
That's brilliant. Yeah, and thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm really looking forward to getting into this. And speaking of curiosity, it's time for the Quickfire 5. So if you're ready, time for question 1. What's something random that just sparks your curiosity?
I think I'm curious about all sorts of things actually, and I can find science in pretty much everything, from noticing temperature inversion causing fog to hover above the ground to the formation of bubbles in my tea. I'm always noticing things, so I don't think there's one random thing, just lots.
Yeah. It's funny how those the littlest of things can just spark that curiosity in all of us, right? Well, let's keep that going then for the next one. What job do you think you might be doing if science wasn't on the table?
I think this is a really tricky one for me, actually. So thanks, Tim, for landing me with this.
I like to challenge.
I'm a bit of a polymath, like many primary teachers, perhaps as suggested by my portfolio career. I am a bit like Miss Rabbit from Peppa Pig. So I love all sorts of things, actually, not just science, although I'm very passionate about it. I like art, I like writing, cooking, creating, languages, geography, history. I think there are lots of overlaps actually in the analytical and evaluating skills between science and history. I also love archaeology actually, but again, there's also kind of a bit of a scientific angle to that as well. And I think for me that's because science is everywhere. But I won't go into too much detail about that before our main discussions.
Yeah, wow. It is kind of all connected though, isn't it? What's the most common misconception that you see teachers have about primary science?
I think the most common misconception actually is that science is hard. Okay, once we get into kind of, higher order quantum physics, the concepts are a bit tricky. I mean, even quantum physicists don't really understand quantum physics. But science fundamentally is about observing, wondering, finding things out about the world around us. There's a figure that's often bandied around that 40% of primary teachers are not confident teaching science. I think it was from a Wellcome report 15 or 20 years ago. And I do my best to try to support my fellow teachers to increase that confidence and competence in teaching primary science.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense, actually. Well, let's step away from school for the next one and think about something maybe a little bit more personal. So imagine this. You've got 24 hours, no responsibilities, and unlimited snacks. Very important point. What are you going to do?
So I'm going to squeeze as much as I possibly can into those 24 hours. Now, I know that Bryony Turford used a time machine in one of her answers to the Quickfire 5 earlier on in this series. So I'm going to ask Bryony if I can borrow her time machine so that I can spend time with all the important people in my life. So there will be walking in nature, in woods and at the beach, and there will be swimming in the sea. Being in water is very much my happy place. I'll be spending time with friends and family, chatting, eating those unlimited tasty snacks. Thanks very much, Tim. And drinking tea and cocktails. I will be teleporting to visit one of my best friends who very selfishly moved to New Zealand 7 years ago. And I shall time travel to before my parents had dementia and when my dad remembered who we all were, and I will just soak up his sage advice because he was really a very incredible mind. And I will also see my friend Rachel before she died as well. People and nature are really important to me. And I will probably also squeeze some work into those 24 hours as well, because I absolutely love what I do.
Yeah, that sounds like a well-balanced day, to be honest. Time with people, time in nature, and maybe a lot of treats along the way. Nice. So to wrap up our quickfire 5, what's one idea that you wish every single child left primary school understanding?
I think that science is everywhere, and that it's for everyone. That science is about noticing things, about wondering, about being curious. It's about asking questions and exploring ways to find out the answers.
Yeah, nice. If we can just get them to keep asking questions, right, then we're doing something right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit now and just look at that bigger picture. Maybe I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here and just kind of ask, why are we doing any of it? What is the point of primary science?
And I think you've already got into some of the answers to this with guests previously in the series. Some brilliant answers for that,
Yes.
and some excellent advice about the how-tos as well. But the why is something that I feel really passionate about, actually. Science is amazing and it's everywhere. In every aspect of our lives. It's about understanding how our bodies work, why the sky is blue, what's happening to our planet, how we fit into the bigger picture in space, how materials behave, how computers work, and so much more. And I think science is fundamental at primary school. Children are naturally curious, wondering, testing things out from the earliest stages of development. Babies are making sense of their world, observing, noticing cause and effect, experimenting with sounds, learning about taste, where their feet are, exploring movement. I think play, science, and discovery are intricately linked. And science, as I've said, is all about being curious, wondering and finding things out. The Aspires report from Professor Louise Archer and her team at the Institute of Education at University College London and King's College London before that has shown that children's ideas about whether science is for them or not are fixed before the age of 10. In fact, Professor Carol Davenport's research at New STEM suggests that gender stereotypes and differences are actually fixed by the age of 6. So it's paramount that younger children experience science, discovery, questioning, testing, and finding things out at primary school and before. Science also supports developing skills in critical thinking, problem solving, resilience. These are skills that we want children, young people, and adults to have in order to navigate their lives. And science provides meaningful, relevant, real-world contexts for children as well. And I think whether children go into science or STEM in their future careers or they don't, we still need to develop a level of scientific literacy and understanding so that society can understand about how the world works and can engage in evaluation and debate about topics like clinical trials and space travel and technology, health and disease and aging, electric cars, misinformation. And we need curious people wondering, asking questions and trying things out.
A wealth of reasons there. I don't think you can argue with that, really. That's kind of the end of the end of the episode. That's it. Job done. But yeah, I mean, it's really easy, isn't it, to forget sometimes, or maybe take for granted how much science shapes our everyday understanding of the world, isn't it? But it would be just interesting to just imagine for a second, right? If you took science completely out of the primary curriculum tomorrow, like who would notice and what would we see?
Well, me, I would notice, definitely. David Attenborough. Actually, everyone would notice, I think. As I mentioned in response to a previous question, science supports developing those vital skills of problem solving, of thinking critically, of questioning, of analysing, of evaluating data, challenging reliability, of resilience and perseverance as well. Now, I won't stray too much into the political, but there have been some concerning developments in the world lately with with climate change denial and vaccine disinformation and the large-scale cutting of funding for scientific research. And encouraging our children's curiosity, fostering care for the natural world, driving innovation, it makes the world a better place.
It's more woven into life than we do sometimes realize. And I think the thing is, though, that sometimes it's not always treated that way in schools. You know, like, let's be honest. Do you think science in many cases is still seen as kind of like a second-class subject in primary? And if so, why do you think that might be?
So I think firstly, I'd like to say that there are many schools and teachers doing an absolutely brilliant job at teaching and learning in primary science. And I see this through the Primary Science Quality Mark and the many teachers and schools that I work with in various roles as well. It's a complex subject, not necessarily in the perceived difficulty of the concepts of science that I mentioned earlier, but in that it's a subject about learning about the science concepts and about learning how to do science. And there are all these interwoven aspects of content and procedural knowledge, carrying out inquiries or investigations, developing skills and knowledge. And primary teachers have to know about and how to teach a lot of different things. And in science, we have to do this in 1 or 2 hours a week, if we're lucky. Now, science, it is a core subject, but even in schools doing science well, it's still a poor relation to English and maths. And English and maths are undoubtedly important subjects, and their skills are used widely, but so is science. I think there are so many nuances and context and history behind the reason why. And of course, other subjects like art and music and sport and humanities are important too. But science is fundamental to understanding the world and developing the skills of questioning, critical thinking and problem solving. And it also provides engaging and meaningful context to apply skills from other subjects like oracy and literacy and numeracy. So I think in short, it is often seen as a second class subject. And I don't think it should be.
Yeah, I think that's quite important. Like there is, like you said, a lot pulling on teachers' time, but it is kind of a bit of a shame when science gets sort of squeezed out. And it does make me wonder, like, who or maybe what's really driving that perception? Like, is this a leadership issue or a teacher competence issue, or maybe a greater sort of societal one? You know, who do we think's really holding science back?
I think it's a really complex issue, actually. I think it's all of those things that you mention. I also think there's a bit of a paradox. Society both does and doesn't value science at the same time. During the pandemic, we saw a greater appreciation for scientific research and for the medical profession and for teachers as parents attempted to support learning at home. But we also saw a lot of distrust and misinformation about science from vaccines to mobile phones. And I think the media also drive this dichotomy as well. Primary teachers do often lack the confidence to teach science well, perhaps because of a lack of science subject knowledge. Many of them haven't really thought about science since GCSEs. And I often uncover misconceptions in teachers as well as in children as well. And as I mentioned before, science is a complex subject to teach, even if you are secure in the content knowledge. There's cognitive overload as a teacher trying to orchestrate explicitly teaching working scientifically skills, tier 3 vocabulary, encouraging children to ask questions and express their ideas, to teach the content, to identify and address misconceptions, to manage resources, especially the electricity kit, which ties itself back up in knots 5 minutes after being separated, to embrace outdoor learning, to develop science capital, to link to careers, to carry out a range of inquiry types, to ensure progression, develop independence, to assess for learning. It needs more time and space than an hour a week. And science is often seen as this second-class subject next to English and maths. And some schools even sit it as a foundation subject, even though it is a core subject. And while we definitely don't wish to have a return to SATs in science at Key Stage 2 in England, and I focus on England only because that's where I mostly work, removing the SATs did move the focus away although I don't think that the science stats themselves did much to support the quality of teaching of science at primary. And it moved that focus firmly onto English and maths for many years. And some of the schools I work with even tell me that, oh, science isn't a core subject in our school. So I think there are failings in leadership from the Department for Education, from Ofsted, from multi-academy trusts, from local authorities, and from head teachers and senior leadership teams. But I also think that there are amazing examples of leadership that value and celebrate and support brilliant science curriculum teaching and learning. I don't think that it helps that there's no fixed guidelines on how much or how often science should be taught at primary. There is the welcome guidance that says it should be ideally 1.5 hours a week for Key Stage 1 and 2 hours for Key Stage 2. I personally feel that even that isn't actually enough, but that often doesn't even happen in reality. And some schools are even still teaching science as a topic or in a block, once a half term or a term, which doesn't support developing skills and knowledge and revisiting those aspects. Whereas English and maths generally have 4 or 5 hours per week each. I don't think there's a magic wand. The curriculum is overcrowded and pressured for all subjects, and actually a wide variety of experiences are really important at primary. Yeah. No magic wand, sorry.
That's absolutely fair. And yeah, it's that mix of things, right? You know, like you said, we need to tackle it from all sides, because if we don't, well, what do we risk as a country if we don't invest in early science education? I think we've kind of covered it a bit, but you know, what do you think we risk as a country on a bigger scale?
I think we risk a number of things at different levels, actually. I think we will have a smaller pool for our STEM workforce. Our science, technology, engineering, maths and medicine jobs make up a large proportion in the UK of what we do. With fewer people understanding and pursuing those careers, we won't have people to do those jobs. Without a certain level of scientific literacy and understanding, we have a society that can't make informed decisions about deforestation, climate change, town planning, transport issues, renewable energy, space, medicines, pollution, chemical contamination, computers, AI, mobile phones. We also risk a lack of those skills of critical thinking and problem solving, resilience and perseverance, questioning, wondering, testing and finding things out. And these skills are used everywhere, in everything, by everyone. It's not just science.
Yeah, that's quite a sobering thought, actually. And I guess it's not just about future jobs, but it's about how we navigate those big issues we're facing. So, okay, here's a scenario. If you were in charge of pitching science to powers that be, imagine the national curriculum was wiped clean tomorrow and you got to pitch science from scratch. What's that elevator pitch to the government?
So you definitely like to challenge in your questions, Tim, don't you?
Yes.
This isn't a nice soft question for me. I think I've alluded to many of the reasons already. So I think my elevator pitch would be a combination of those. Primary science is essential in the national curriculum because it lays the foundation for curiosity, critical thinking, and problem solving skills from an early age. It helps children to understand the world around them, to develop a love of learning and build scientific literacy, skills that are vital in our rapidly changing, technology-driven society. And by nurturing young minds through hands-on inquiry and exploration, primary science empowers the next generation to become informed citizens, creative thinkers, and future innovators.
A very strong case there. Yeah. And that's the heart of why science should be there right from the start, isn't it, really? So finally, to just bring it back into the classroom, what's one really important, powerful thing that a classroom teacher could do tomorrow to make science more meaningful in their class?
Okay, I have to pick just one.
Just one.
Okay, I mean, I could talk about social justice, equity, and science capital. I could talk about links to other areas of the curriculum about assessment, about subject content knowledge, about the skills of doing science. But I think I'm going to go for more opportunities for hands-on discovery and exploration. So the chance for children to see, to observe, to notice and wonder about scientific phenomena for themselves. Whether that's the feel of wet, slippery mud, a melting ice lolly, as suggested by the Primary Curriculum Advisory Group recently, creating a circuit to see a light bulb light up, floating and sinking, discovering woodlice under a log, observing the changing seasons, dissolving or measuring temperature changes. I think getting hands-on and having a go is fundamental to learning. So I think there's the quote that's often attributed to Confucius, the Chinese philosopher. I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand.
And there you have it. Yeah. Get those hands dirty, get them doing science and having a go. A very powerful takeaway. Well, there we have it. It is really just so important to just keep flying that flag for primary science. And I think now that we've had a chat with you, we really have a fully stocked armory of powerful reasons to support that point. Jo, this has been an absolutely great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Tim. Thank you for listening to my passion project about science and education.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. And that's it, everyone, for season 2. And what a perfect way to wrap it up.